Welcome everyone. In this video, I'll guide you through using invoice management in Fusioo. The apps I'll be creating are available as ready-to-use templates in Fusioo. If you haven't signed up yet, you can select the invoice management template during registration. Or if you already have an account, you can just head to Workspace Settings, navigate to Templates, select Invoice Management, and click Use Template. That said, in this tutorial, I'll show you how to build an invoice management system from scratch, which includes 3 apps: Clients, Invoices, and Invoice Items. To get started, navigate to Workspace Settings and click on Organize Apps. I'll create a new bundle, name it Invoice Management, and choose an icon to represent it. Next, we'll start adding apps to the bundle, beginning with the simplest one, the Clients app. Click on Create App, then select Create a New App, and name it Clients. The Builder Assistant will suggest fields for your app to select from. In this case, I will be keeping the name, email, phone number, and address, removing the rest. With the Clients app complete, let's move on to the next one, the Invoice Items app. From the suggested fields, I'll keep description, quantity, unit price, and tax rate. For this app, there are some additional fields I would like to add. So let's go to the app settings and click on Fields. I'll begin by creating a number field and name it Discount Percentage. In the field settings, I'll configure the minimum value to 0, the maximum to 100, the default value to 0, and set the unit to percentage. Next, I'll create a formula field to calculate the tax due automatically. First, I'll determine the subtotal by multiplying the quantity by the unit cost. Then, I'll calculate the discount amount by multiplying the subtotal by the discount. Finally, the tax due will be calculated as the subtotal minus the discount multiplied by the tax percentage. I'll round the result to 2 decimal places and set the suffix to dollars. Next, I'll set up another formula field to calculate the total amount due for each item. I'll start by copying the formula we used earlier in the tax due field and use a temporary variable to store the tax due amount. The result of the formula will be the subtotal minus the discount plus the tax due. I'll also set the suffix to dollars. The last thing I'll do for this app is resize and organize the fields. Once that's done, we can save everything and move on to the next app, Invoices. This is the final app we'll be building. Let's start by entering the name and checking out the AI suggested fields. From these, I'll keep the invoice number, status, and the connections to other apps. Once the app is created, we'll add a few fields to our Invoices app. First up is a date field, so we can track when the invoice was issued. Next, I'm going to add a formula field to calculate the total tax due for the invoice. To do this, I'll return the sum of tax due from the items. Similarly, I'll add another formula field to calculate the total amount. This time, I'll return the sum of line totals from the items. Now, let's check the settings of the invoice number. We want the value for this field to be generated automatically. In this case, this option has already been enabled by AI when we chose it from the suggested fields. Let's move to the status field. The options look good, but I'll reorder them and add some color formatting. I'm also going to set the field to required and set pending as the default value. With all our changes complete, we can now save the app and test it out. Let's click Create a new client to start adding our first record. We'll enter the details for the client. For this app, we've kept it simple and just used the fields suggested by the Builder Assistant, but you can add more fields to track extra information. Once the record is saved, our first client is created. To add an invoice for this client, simply right-click on the record, go to Create Record, and select Invoices. This opens the invoice form with the client already pre-selected. By default, app relationships are shown as badges, but I prefer to display invoice items in a grid view. To change this, I'll go to Layout Settings, switch the view type to grid, and pick the columns I want. For example, I also want to show the discount percentage, tax rate, and line total. Now the items are displayed in a grid and we can create invoice items directly from here. I'll also resize the form and adjust the columns so the grid fits perfectly. Let's create a couple of invoice items by entering the description, quantity, unit price, discount percentage, and tax rate. The line total will calculate automatically once the record is saved. I'll add another item to the invoice, setting the discount to 10% this time. Now that the items are added, it's time to save the invoice. You can navigate between the apps using the menu on the left. Right now we've got one client, 2 items, and 1 invoice. Next up, I want to export invoices as PDFs. To do that, we need to set up an invoice template. Head over to Invoices App Settings and click on Reports. I want a report for each invoice, so I'll go with the first option. You can choose from the existing report templates, but for this video, I'll show you how to create a simple invoice from scratch. I'll start by adding a text component to display the invoice number. Using @ you can pull values from your fields. I'll increase the font size, make it bold, and change the text color. I'll also resize the component and align the text to the right. Next, I'll add an image component for the logo. Let's left align the image and then resize the component to make it smaller. Then, I'll add another text component for the Build To section, showing the client's name and address. We can increase the component's height to make it fit better. Let's also set the font size to 14 pixels and align the text to the top. Similarly, I'll add a text component for Build From with your company's details. I'll use top and right alignment and set the font size to 14 pixels. Finally, I'll add a table component for the invoice items, starting with a preset style, and then I can customize it later as needed. Once added, the grid will include some columns by default, but I will be changing a couple of them. For example, I'm going to add the quantity value to the first column, and then I'll remove the quantity column. I want the unit price to always show values with 2 decimal places. To do that, I'll click on the column, change the column type to a formula, and use the number to text function. By setting the format to 0.00, it ensures the output always has 2 decimal places. For the discounts column, I'll update the name and add a percentage sign to the value. I'll do the same for the tax column. Edit the name and include the percentage sign. Next, I'll add a new formula column for the item's cost. I'll use the number to text function here too, so the value is formatted. And I'll right align the values in this column. Lastly, I'll tweak the column widths for the table. I'll set the width of the description column to 4, the unit price column to 2, and reduce the spacing for the discounts column so it fits better. Next, let's display the total balance due for the invoice. Add a formula component, use the number to text function, and include the value from the total amount field. Increase the font size, set it to bold, and align the text to the right. Then I'll add one last component with the label balance due. I'll right-align the text, increase the font size, and resize the components so they are displayed closer to each other. And that's it. Our invoice template is ready. The final step is to rename the report and save the changes. Now we can head back over to our Invoices app, where we have the record we created earlier. To generate the invoice report, right-click on the record, go to Reporting, and select our newly created invoice template. And just like that, the invoice is exported as a PDF. In this video, we covered how to set up your apps and invoices for a simple invoice management system. From here, it's all about making the system your own. You can tweak the report template to include more details and give it that professional look. Automations are a great way to set reminders or even send invoices straight from Fusioo to your clients. Adding widgets is another option to help you visualize your data and stay on top of everything. That's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.